Now let's just talk about John Pilger, because I criticised John Pilger in a previous show. Now he wrote an article about the alleged bomber and about this supposed terrorist group that the alleged bomber was a member of.
Right, yeah.
So and that seemed to spark some mainstream media front pages after John Pilger had written this article. I'm just going to read a little bit from the John Pilger article. He states, "The unsayable in Britain's general election campaign is this. The causes of the Manchester atrocity, in which 22 mostly young people were murdered by a jihadist, are being suppressed to protect the secrets of British foreign policy."
Very true, yeah.
Well, but you refute the deaths, though, don't you?
Well, apparent deaths, yeah.
Yeah. Critical questions such as why the security service MI5 maintained terrorist assets in Manchester and why the government did not warn the public of the threat in their midst remain unanswered, deflected by the promise of an internal review. The alleged suicide bomber, Salman Abedi, was part of an extremist group, the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group, that thrived in Manchester and was cultivated and used by MI5 for more than 20 years. The LIFG is prescribed by Britain as a terrorist organisation which seeks a hardline Islamic state in Libya and is part of the wider global Islamist extremist movement as inspired by Al-Qaeda. Right, so what John Pilger is saying is MI5 knew about this guy, they knew he was part of this terrorist group, and the government are keeping quiet about that, right? Now, he's not going further in suggesting, well, he's not suggesting why the hell the government would harbour such a person, is he?
No.
Right, and that's my beef with John Pilger, that he's
giving
room for the fact that it's just bumbling mistakes by the security services, that they were kind of keeping an eye on this guy and they weren't keeping a close enough eye on him, so he kind of did it of his own volition.
Yeah.
Pilger's given room for that, isn't he?
Yeah, we could describe this in terms of lie-hop versus my-hop. Lie-hop is let it happen on purpose, that the government sort of knew this terrorist was planning something dreadful and may have allowed him to do it because they need a bit of terror, okay? And my-hop is make it happen on purpose, that the government sets up the whole thing and gets this guy as a patsy, apparently to do something, and actually he hasn't.
Right. Okay, well, I'll credit John.
Sorry, anyone in the media cannot promote my-hop. There's no published media that will allow that.
Right. Okay, I'll credit John Pilger for bringing this up, but I'd also criticise him for not suggesting that it could be my-hop, right? But as you say, he wouldn't be allowed a platform in the mainstream media, and how sad is that? Right. Now, let's just expand a little bit more on the likes of John Pilger, right? Because you made a very interesting comment last night about John Pilger and others. You called them, what was it, left-wing, 20th century socialists.
All the great gurus from the left-wing socialist movement, anti-war movement, CND, came over into the century and they couldn't really adapt to what happened with 9/11, the massive scale of the deception.
You include, what is it, Noam Chomsky in this?
Noam Chomsky, totally, right. Yeah.
So he was good before the turn of the century.
Yeah, he was a great inspiring force for the anti-war and sort of radical, everyone thought they were radical.
But after 9/11, something happens that he can't possibly report the truth about.
Yeah, the plot changes completely, and a new generation of people appear that understand 9/11 to varying degrees and different points of view, and those are the people we need to listen to now. And I have great admiration for Pilger, wonderful, great journalist who bothers to go to the war-torn scenes and find out what's really happened.
Well, he doesn't find out what really happened, does he?
Well, he witnesses what is the aftermath of British policy, but he can't quite go as far as saying, you know, these events are fabricated by the government or by unknown secret agents. He can't quite go that far. Nobody can. Nobody can in the printed media. That is a different culture, which is web-based.
Right. So Pilger and his ilk, what they do is they'll suggest that it's just the foreign policy that make these things happen,
Blowback, blowback.
Blowback.
Like George Galloway, for example.
Yeah.
So,
Galloway is another one.
London bombing is blowback, which is an extreme reasonable view, but it happens not to be the case.
Yeah.
It happens those people didn't actually do it. And you only get that realisation by going into a close focus of looking at the detail of the actual events.
Mm-hmm.
That these terrorists are not actually there. That guy who allegedly had his torso blown in two, he wasn't there. That didn't happen.